Hey folks, how you all going today? We have more ArmSoM. Now, these guys are fantastic to work with, and as I said in the last video, I hadn't heard of them before. They just reached out to me randomly, and then I tested their products out, and by golly, are they good. They're really, really good. Now, if the packages look familiar, it's because there is a connection between them and Banana Pi. They work together closely. They have some similar products. They are a supporting team that produce different products for different markets, but can leverage that open source and open environment that we all love, especially when it comes to computing hardware, software, everything in between. Like that open source nature is what we're after. So we have the CM5, the CM5 is down there, and the CM5 IO, and we've got the P2 Pro, and we're going to have a look at those today. In case you missed it last time, we looked at the Forge 1 and the Siege 7. Now, the Siege 7 is running my house. That thing's got about 20 Docker containers running on it. I'm using a Rockchip version of Ubuntu from Joshua Reich, which supports the RK NPU. And so that's running Frigate with object detection, and the thing's awesome. I am very impressed. So I'm hoping these are going to be just as good. But we'll unbox them, we'll have a look at them, we'll go through their specs, we'll try them out, and then we'll put them on the SBC tier list. Now, if you haven't seen that before, we'll have a look at it shortly. But first, let's look at these. So let's start with the CM5. Now, the concept of what a compute module is kind of all over the shop, and I do have my board taxonomies GitHub repo I'll link to below. If you haven't seen it before, I'm attempting to define what's an SBC, what's an ESB, what's an ESBC, what's a compute module, what's a dev board, all of those wonderful things. I'd love your input, and on Reddit r/SBCs, we do talk about these things a bit as well. We're building the community there. But when it comes to CM5, so some other vendors beat Raspberry Pi. Sorry, let's get this open with a little bit more quietness. Some other vendors kind of beat Raspberry Pi to make a CM5, and that changed a few things, which was unexpected. So the CM4, the Compute Module 4, it's been around for some time, and it's got the two 100-pin B2B connectors that you can see here. CM5, especially from I think it was Radsha and Orange Pi, introduced a third connector, which I believe is optional. But Raspberry Pi didn't do that, and as you can see here, not all vendors do. But some are compatible, some aren't. So we're going to test these out a little bit as well and see which ones work together. Now, off the cuff, we have two very nicely designed products here. And you can see some of them are dual branded. So we have the ArmSoM logo, and if I can get a good focal point, there we go. And we have the Banana Pi logo. The CM5 board, I can see the ArmSoM logo. No Banana Pi logo. Just don't touch, don't bin, no lead. Now, as far as the specs go, they're pretty impressive. The CM5 module itself is $69 for the entry-level module. That's got an RK3576 processor, and by default, I believe comes with 8 gig of RAM and an eMMC. Wow, all right, so what was that? I think it might be a 32 gig eMMC. The box will tell me that I've promptly thrown away. So I've got a 4 gig of RAM, 32 gig eMMC model. So that entry one is $69 US, and the IO board is $35. So for $104, you can get the Maker Kit too, which is pretty well priced in my opinion. The reason for that is that this is the RK3576. So if we change our zoom on that, what the RK3576 has is a quad-core A72, so that's 64-bit ARM processor running at 2.2 gigahertz, and a quad-core Cortex A53, which is at 1.8 gigahertz. It also has a dedicated Neon coprocessor and the standard ARM Mali G52 GPU that you can expect in there. So all of that then gives you the 6 TOPS NPU, gives you H.264 and H.265 and VP9 and AV1 and AVS2 hardware decoding. That's 8K 30 FPS, 4K 120 FPS, or you can do the math. Encoding, H.264, H.265, and MJPEG, 4K 60 FPS. So very, very capable, especially again for camera applications. You've then got the onboard Wi-Fi. So this is Wi-Fi AX and Bluetooth 5.3. You've then got DC barrel jack input, and I believe that power might also be USB Type-C, power delivery plus data or on the go, but we'll check that out. So looking around the outside of the I/O board, we've got our MIPI DSI port, which is excellent. So that's going to be touch interface display. MIPI CSI, that looks like a quad lane, 31 pin 0.5 millimeter pitch. We've got our connector, obviously, 40 pin header. We've got some little connectors here. Now, if you can see the wording, that says HP out, I'm not too sure, fan and VRTC. So real-time battery, fan, not sure. Mask ROM, power, reset. Little jumper over here, I'm going to be guessing is PoE related, but I honestly don't have the specs in front of me right now because it's a Sunday and I just didn't prepare for this video. We've then got a M.2 PCIe interface, so that obviously is 2280 form factor, so you can stick a nice fat M.2 SSD on there, and you got an SD card slot. These then fit together this way around, and in case you've never connected, am I getting that right? No, that way around. In case you've never connected compute modules before, there's a bit of a crunch, and it's mildly scary, but when it's on there, it's on there. So looking at this DC in, oh yeah, we've got our USB ports, LAN and HDMI. The DC in doesn't actually say on the board how many volts it wants, so we'll check that, but I'm going to assume it's going to be 19 to 20, similar to a laptop power supply. And for that, I will be using my USB Type-C power delivery cable with these PD triggers. I don't know if you've seen them before. I've got these in stock, but essentially this one is, if I can see a little marking, 19.5 volt PD trigger. So you just attach this to a USB PD cable and then plug it in and you're off to the races. So I am going to grab an image for this. I'm going to check that voltage and then we'll see what happens when we boot it up. Hold please. All right, so quickly checking the docs. This is 12 volt. So I've got the 12 volt version of the trigger here. I've got my HDMI cable. This is going to my new Elgato capture thingy. Because I've had no end of issue with capture devices. So we're trying something new. 12 volt PD trigger, plug this in, and I can see up on my Pine Power, we've got 12 volts available now. If you haven't seen Pine Power before, they are very handy devices made by Pine64. Again, I have them in stock for the Australian version, but not everywhere. What we're going to do now is plug this in and see if the eMMC that this comes with has an image on it by default. Now, the image that's available is a Debian, oh, this is pushing my memory. Nope, I don't remember. So we'll plug it in and find out. Let's see what happens. Switch to HDMI. Oh, I wish I could get rid of that branding. Plug it in. Just so you know, actually, little green light comes on. There we go, boot splash. Neighbour's dog going off. Blackness. Mouse cursor. Something's happening. Wow, all right. We've immediately got a 4K desktop in Chinese. So I'm going to go grab my mouse and keyboard, and I'm going to quickly see if I can change this to English and change the resolution so we can read something too. One moment. Well, that was something. So I couldn't figure out how to change the language at all. I did get into Settings Manager, and I found something in here that looked the part, but I just couldn't do it. I did manage to get the resolution changed, so got somewhere. In the end though, I just went and flashed it with the latest image. So here we've got a fresh image, freshly booted up. It was in English this time, which made it a lot easier, thank you. But of course it was still set to 4K, which is way too rough for what we're doing. Especially I'm looking at it on a tiny little 14-inch screen, so could barely see a thing. I don't know what you're going to be seeing there, but we'll give it a shot. We'll see what we get in this. First of all, we want to go Chrome GPU and just see what's going on. We have a ridiculous amount of support out of the box there. I didn't inspect that. I didn't expect that. Let's have a quick look, by the way. If you, oh, that's really hard to see. Can I change that resolution? Do we have a better terminal than that? That's, is that all we've got? Jesus, that's hard to. All right. I'll read it out to you. So we have 4 gig of RAM, no swap by default. If we do uname -8, we have a 6.1.99 kernel. That's pretty bloody awesome. And we of course have a 1632 gig eMMC on here. That's split into 2 partitions. So we've got half of that for the root file system, and then we've got /user data with the other half. Now, I'm just going to plug in a network cable here, and we'll make sure that we've got some internet, and then we'll be able to see what sort of results we get from WebGL. Now, back here, you can see there is no heartbeat light. There is just the green light. And that does make diagnostics a little bit hard sometimes. ArmSoM, if and when you watch this, would be awesome to have a heartbeat light. I thought there was a user LED, but it must just be that one. I did also find out, though, that the connector over here we weren't sure about, HS out, is your speakers. So you've got left and right speakers there. Now, to flash this, same as any other rock chip, you're just going to mask ROM mode and flash the MMC using the firmware tool. The instructions are on their doco, which is quite excellent. Now, getting back to the input here, we can see we've got networking up there. So I'm going to do sudo su hyphen. Yes, I know there is another way to do it. And here I'll do apt update and apt upgrade. Whilst that is going, let's do base mark WebGL and just see what this does, because even though the hardware acceleration is enabled there, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work. And what did you do, Chromium? Jesus. Okay, I don't know what's going on there, but whatever. What I'll do at the end of this, of course, is run Geekbench, and I'll put a link below to the Geekbench results so you can see how well this thing does and compare it to others, because not everything is just the SoC. So this SoC makes a bit of a difference. You've got the I/O between the SoC, the eMMC, the RAM, and then you've got the general build quality. So, and not to mention specs. So not all what was this? RK3576s will perform the same. Now, in this instance, this one has a it's DDR5, LPDDR5, but I believe it's 32-bit. So you're going to get about 12 gigabit a second versus 19 gigabit a second with the 64-bit DDR interface in the RK3588. But this is about 70% of the performance in theory. So the RK3576 is somewhere between the RK3568 and the RK3588. Bit hard to say, bit of a mouthful, but if you're into that, it's important to know. The reason I quite like this, though, so it's an RK3576 with slightly older SoC, and it's got slightly older cores with the A72 and the A53, but it makes it cost effective. So $69 is really bloody impressive. Plus, it's got a lot better features than the Raspberry Pi CM4. It beats the specs in pretty much every regard. So for its cost, it's killing it, and that's, I believe, where this is positioned. You can, of course, get higher spec, and you can move to the RK3588, which is their Siege 7 I looked at before. Now, over here, this is actually doing WebGL, which is really, really impressive and unexpected. We do have a pile of updates, but a number of them are held back, which is interesting. So, I didn't actually do any. It looks like there is a freeze in this image, so there's pretty much no updates, but everything is working. And the fact that this is an RK3576 that has a vendor image that has GPU working out of the box is amazing. I did not expect that. Now, just to have a quick recap, we've gone through all of its specs. I'm not going to show you its documentation, but I can assure you it's good. What is interesting is there is a number of images. So let's jump over to the computer and we'll have a look at what images they've got. Because it's a compute module, it obviously might go on a few carrier boards. And I have a few carrier boards here. So we might quickly test some of these and see what we get out of them. But let me show you, can't even see that one, but let me show you what the website has too. Look, you do get to see the documentation in the end anyway. So we've got all the specifications and the user manual and the interfaces and all of that. And actually they've got a good comparison here to the Raspberry Pi. Now, if we go all the way down, this pin documentation is excellent too. There is Armbian separately, but on their Google Drive link, if we go and have a look fact, I've already got it open here. They've got the Raspberry Pi CM4 interfaces, their version, and then they've got one for the Waveshare CM4 Nano B. Now that's a really cool little carrier board that I don't actually have, so I thought I'd open it in a new tab to show you. As I mentioned before as well, there is the SBC tier list that these products are going on, that these will go on. So this is the ArmSoM CM5 with the category, when I reviewed it, a link to YouTube and then just a link to my shop. But that got an S tier because it is so bloody good. And here I also have the board taxonomies that I was talking about. So I've been working on these definitions, and I do have a AI generated upgrade with a lot more information for your consideration. The last thing I want to say before we get back to the product is PCBWay are awesome, and they have started their Christmas sales. So PCBWay continue to sponsor this channel. There is a link below to get $5 off your first order. Use that to sign up, and then you can get 1 to 10 pieces of 1 to 2 layer with pretty much any standard settings, and just pay for your shipping. Only shipping, because that will get waived using the link below. PCBWay makes some great stuff and are just great people to work with. I use them because their quality of pretty much everything, support, product, components, the lot, is better than all the others I've tried, and I do frequently try them. So thank you, PCBWay. Now, there is the, of course, Armbian build, and I'm going to quickly have a look at that as well. I've just downloaded the Ubuntu Noble. It doesn't say that there's any extensions here, but we'll see how well it works, and then we'll move on. What I might quickly do over here, though, is just try some of these. Now, these are going to be all based around the Raspberry Pi board design, but I do have a Waveshare board as well, and I have confirmed that that isn't power. So let's quickly turn this off and see what happens with some other boards. But that I/O board and that image worked, oh, I hate this, worked very well. So first things first, let's go for the Waveshare board. I'm not going to reflash it with a different image. A lot of the interfaces are the same. It's these peripherals that are or aren't going to work. HDMI is a sometimes thing. So let's just see what we get from each. We've got HDMI in there, and we have USB Type-C power here. Now, I do have these in stock if you're after some Waveshare boards. Going to our HDMI interface, it's booting, and it looks like it works. So I'll plug the mouse in. There we go. And on here we do have a couple of LEDs. As I finish booting, I'm just going to plug in the network too. We'll see if that's mapped through the same as others. Now, my USB interface is not working. If I can get it in, it's always that USB upside down first time, second time, and third time where you were to start with works, isn't it? No, so all right, by default with this Waveshare board, I do not have those interfaces working, but Ethernet and HDMI does. So I think if you got the Nano B image and flashed it with that, it would work. The reason I expect that is because Waveshare aren't going to completely redesign their boards from scratch every time. Let's use one of my little limited edition PCB rulers to get this off. These are free with every order. I throw one in with every order that goes out, and I thought I'd get purple for a little while because it looks cool. All right, so that was that one. We then have the Geekworm. This is, of course, meant for the Raspberry Pi CM5, and I expect it's going to be very, very similar. In the end, I didn't use this. As much as I liked it, I didn't use it because I forgot that the Raspberry Pi CM5 is a piece of crap. That is my subjective opinion, but because it's mine, it's right. Get over it. Got two HDMI interfaces here. I cannot recall which is which, but we'll get these plugged in and we'll see what happens. Now, as a reminder, it's not to say Geekworm make crap. They make really, really good stuff. Raspberry Pi, I think their stuff is just really kind of average. Not getting any signal. Oh yeah, this board doesn't support power delivery. That was something Geekworm that I wasn't happy about, but let's just put static 5 volt. There we go. Got a little status light there, and we had some SSD lights. You might be able to see it a bit better there. Let's have a look at what's on your HDMI. No signal on that interface. We'll try swapping to the top interface. And I'll hit reset. Oh, yep. So that's the top HDMI port here that I'm using. And I have got my USB 2.0 plug in. That doesn't, whoop, just knocked my camera. That does not actually look like the, sorry, I just walked over and grabbed a HDMI adapter. Doesn't look like USB 2.0 is working on this board with the default image. We'll try 3.0. No, much the same, but we can see the Ethernet is there. So in this instance, I think if we use the Raspberry Pi image, we would get more of the functionality because this board is designed for Raspberry Pi. You can, of course, modify the device tree yourself, and you could probably have a twiddle to get it going, but that's not what I'm doing. Next, we have the Raspberry Pi CM5 baseboard, and you can see this has that extra connector. I expect this should actually work fairly well. I do like this baseboard, and as much as the community is not a fan, all right, this isn't going to happen. So I don't know if you can see the issue there, but some components are hitting that B2B connector. So not going to use this one. But yeah, so as much as the community doesn't like Orange Pi, I am continually pushing them to do things like sponsor Armbian and get more involved with the community and on open source code licenses, because they do actually make really, really good, really powerful products. It's kind of insane. This last one is an interesting one. This was from a third-party designer and sold through Maker Fabs. Here it's got mbsshop.online, but it's a CM4 TV stick. So you just bang it straight into your TV, give it some power, and you've just got a ready-to-go media center, I guess. And what we're going to do is try that out. This is meant for a CM4, so of course the functionality probably won't quite work, but we'll give it a crack. I have some of these left in stock. The only caveat that's kind of worth being aware is some people have reported that just, I guess, due to the connectors used, you can get a bit of corrosion. All right, that's on. Yeah, that's on properly. And for this, the reason I walked across the room was to grab this HDMI female. So we'll bang that in there. Bang that in there. Now this relies 100% on Wi-Fi. As you can see, there is no Ethernet port. Oh, and then we'll stick some power into it. Most jankily, like this. Red light's a good light. HDMI, please. There we go, got some HDMI. I'm going to plug in my USB connection. Now, if this just works, that would be really cool. Because USB can be broken out, can be directly connected to the USB interfaces of the B2B connectors, from what I understand. But it can also be using a USB hub that's on the PCIe interface. There's a few ways that it can be done. Now, that port didn't work. I'm just going to try the other port. No. So I'll say this, don't know what happened there. I'll say the same thing. The Raspberry Pi image on this would probably work excellently. These obviously are meant for Raspberry Pi, so you got to use things as they're designed for. A lot of people ask about using things like this as everyday computers and whatnot, but you got to realize not every SBC is a gaming SBC, and not every compute module is a powerhouse. These products are designed for different purposes, and this one is a very generalized all-round design, but they do accommodate to a lot of users, hence releasing a lot of images. What we're going to do now is I'm going to put it back on its board, and I'm going to flash it with the Armbian image just so we can test this out. Give me a few moments, I'll come back when that one's about to boot up. Hold, please. All right, so I used the world's slowest SD card, but that's finally flashed. We have this Armbian image. Hopefully, I don't have to clear the eMMC and we'll just boot to the SD card. U-boot has to be configured to look in the correct order. Jumping over to HDMI though, we'll see what we get. Waiting. This is very confusing. Hey, there we go. Ooh, we've got a new Armbian logo. I ain't seen that one yet, and that is kind of neat. So being the SD card is of course going to be a little bit slower. Being Armbian though, we're going to get a few different features. So we may or may not have different, what they call extensions. So things like the NPU or the GPU may not function exactly the same, but we do get some neat things as well, like Armbian config, which gives us a lot of shortcuts to configure parts of the system. If you haven't used it before, Armbian, wow, that is some resolution. Armbian is really, really good and is aimed at a everyday sort of use case. They have officially supported images and unofficially supported images. This image is community maintained, so essentially unofficial, but you can also just get the Armbian build environment and build it yourself. It's really, really easy to use, and I've used it quite a few times. Just check out the documentation though. It's excellent, for lack of a better term. Now, thankfully, that resolution changed nice and quick because I would not know what was going on then. Something worth noting as well is that the official image we were looking at before didn't come with any type of out-of-box experience like this. So letting you choose your own password, choose your time zone, keyboard layout, that sort of stuff. One of the things I really like about Joshua Reich's Ubuntu images is that they do. And of course, Joshua Reich does make Ubuntu images for ArmSoM. Now, that is absolutely worth exploring and using. That would be my go-to. And I'll show you those after this. But right now, I just want to see what the Armbian image looks like out of the box. So we have a very, very crisp... Where's my mouse? Why is my mouse not working? Keyboard is, but mouse isn't? Yeah, that's keyboard. Come on, mousey, mousey. Oh, there it is. I just can't see it. Bloody hell. Pardon my profanity, but that's a tiny cursor. Let's sort this out. Let's go 1920, 1080. We don't need 240 hertz. Let's go 60, just so we're not stressing any hardware out. I've done 240 before, and it did work. Yes, I would like to keep these settings. That looks fantastic. Thank you. So, Armbian Ubuntu 24.04 with no Chromium, no Firefox. What web browser do you have? Do you have no web browser? What's going on? We've got Visual Studio Code, but no web browser. So, as I was saying, you do have Armbian config. This gives you a lot of options as far as how you want to use the system. We can see it comes with swap space configured as well, which is pretty bloody nice. And it's not going to have all of those packages locked. So if we jump back into here, ignore my bit of password that you just saw, do an apt update and apt upgrade. We're not going to have so many packages showing up as held back. In here, though, of course, we can change the kernel. So we're using the vendor kernel here, 61115. Can change it to Edge and other builds and things like that. But we don't need to at the moment. We can see that's ticking over nicely. All of the functionality that we want is working. What we really need is a web browser. And there's got to be something on here. What the hell is HexChat? Have any of you heard of some of these things? I'd be very curious. I mean, it's got most things, and I might be losing it, but I'm not. Let's not even bother about that update. Let's just go apt install Chromium. Can't spell. Browser. Is what it is? Hey, it is, not as root. Please don't ever use your web browser as root. Chrome browser requires Premium Snap to be installed. Oh god, I hate Snap. Nah, not even going to bother with that. Ubuntu, canonical, cut this crap out, would you? It's really annoying. So, that is the ArmSoM CM5. I very, very much like it. Now, I did tell you that we're going to get into the P2 Pro in this video. You know what? I don't think we will. I think we're going to make a third ArmSoM video just about this little P2 Pro, which is tiny and cheap and awesome. And you'll see why. The last thing we'll do in this video right now, and probably broken, the last thing we'll do is we'll try Joshua Reich's image just because it's that damn good. So give me a moment. I'm going to quickly download and flash that. And then we'll give that a crack too. Hold tight. Well, what do you know? He doesn't actually make one at the moment for this CM5. There are some others like the Siege 5 that's essentially the same SoC, different interfaces that could work. The Siege 7 image is what I'm using from that last video and is now running my house. And you can see there is a lot of other very similar and very compatible products, but not what we need. So we're not going to have a look at that now then. We are going to call it a day. We're going to quickly recap this. So as far as the price and availability, you can get it from their AliExpress store or their direct website, which gives you, it's both out of China, but that's still good availability. And it's $69 or $104 for the kit. I'll say that's very good pricing. Its features and specs, so it's a bit of a standard CM5 form factor. The CPU, RAM, eMMC, GPU, Wi-Fi, Ethernet, and GPIOs all work, with the exception of one pin, I believe, which is being worked on. It's got the M2 slot, it's got the SD card slot, it supports I can't talk. Supports a real-time clock, it's got the connector for that. 6 TOPS NPU, 4K encoding and decoding, MIPI CSI and DSI, and 4 pins for a PoE config. So I'm going to give it 3 out of 5 for price and availability. No, 4 out of 5, because it's affordable. It's just only out of China. 5 out of 5 for features and specs. Documentation and support, also 5 out of 5. So they've got instructions for most OSs, clear language, easy to navigate. Software images, we've got a few variations available. We've got an SDK available. They're regularly updated. There's third-party images available. 5 out of 5, don't even worry about it. Performance and reliability, so general use was not a problem. Some minor issues there. The 3D and 2D worked out of the box with the GPU. There was pretty much no hurdles except for the language and the resolution. The resolution isn't their fault, the language on the image is. So that's going to be a 4 out of 5 as well. As far as accessories, power is DC barrel jack. I'd prefer USB Type-C, but not a bad option there. Supports PoE, supports cameras, supports additional storage, supports multiple types of displays, supports standard 40-pin configuration, and would fit probably some standard cases. So I'm going to give it 5 out of 5 there. That gives it, I'm going to have to do some math here. Let me get my notepad. There we go. So we have price and availability. That's going to be a 4 out of 5, just because it's cheap, even if it's only from China, because it is available. I just ordered some more bits and even paid out of my own pocket. Features and specs is a 5. Documentation and support is a 5. Software images is a 5. Performance and reliability, going to go with a 4 on that one, just because of that language issue, and that can be fixed. So can the price and availability. None of these are hardware issues. What do we got next? What have I forgotten? Why am I shouting? Accessories. Is that the last one? Yeah, accessories. No issue there. Everything's standard connectors. Everything's exactly what you want. I'm gonna... No, DC barrel jack gets a 4. That knocks it down a little bit. So what do you got there? 4, 4, 12, and 15. We got 27. No, is that 15, 19, 23? Yeah, 27 out of a potential 30. So I had to do some math using a calculator. We've got 6 qualifiers, 5 tiers, 27 out of 30 is 4.5 out of 5, I think, if I did that right, which is right on that cusp. Is it A tier? Is it S tier? That's a 5. Is it S tier? And that's, I don't know. So we've got a lot of A tier stuff, and they've been really good to work with. They're really lovely people. It's got Armbian support. It's got, there's no issue that can't be fixed besides that barrel jack. There's not really any other issue that can't be fixed with software. So S tier it is. You've won a second one, ArmSoM. Well done with an incredible quality product. With making so that even worked out of the box with a pile of other boards, which not all of them do. Yes, there's standard CM4, CM5 interfaces, but they don't all work out the box with other boards. So, Banana Pi, ArmSoM, you've made an excellent product. I appreciate that you've stuck to standards. You're not using any proprietary MIPI DSI or CSI connectors. You're not coming up with your own GPIO interfaces. You're not using mini HDMI. You've got a variety of USB ports. You've done really well. I hope you guys enjoyed this video too. Do not forget, please, please, please do not forget that I've got a Patreon. I'd love if you'd check it out, even joining for free, to just get a few more things, behind the scenes access, posts about what's going on, like the ArmSoM Siege 7, there's all sorts of cool stuff going on here, and I'm slowly building a good community, very slowly, but building a community, and I appreciate your input. Thank you to PCBWay for continuing to sponsor and being great champs as far as my channel and random sporadic crappy videos go. And thank you to everyone else that's contributing. That's including you viewers now, the people that are commenting, everything in between. It's hugely appreciated. I hope you're having a wonderful weekend to start to the holiday season. I'd love to know your thoughts on this. If you want me to test anything out, definitely let me know. But use that PCBWay link below. Join my Patreon and the others. If you can, it starts as low as $3 US a month. Every little bit counts and allows me to make more of these videos. And I guess that's it from me for today. I'm going to go crack a beer, head down the beach. It's 30C, which is something else in freedom units. Have a good weekend. I'll see you soon. Cheers.